Well, g'day curd nerds, and today we're making Lancashire. Yes, I hope I said that correctly, Lancashire. This is a traditional British cheese from the Midlands of the United Kingdom, and there are three types of Lancashire, and they are the young creamy Lancashire, the tasty Lancashire, and crumbly Lancashire. Now, I hope that I've made with this cheese here a crumbly Lancashire. We'll see what happens. If I ate it early, as in at about 4 weeks, then it'll be a young creamy one. But I'm hoping to age this for up to 4 to 8 months, and we'll see if we can get a crumbly Lancashire out of this one. It uses a very simple cheddaring technique, but very simple to make. Now, I did have a little bit of trouble with it, but let's check out how we made Lancashire.
Due to a lack of planning, I am using pasteurised and homogenised milk today, so I don't expect the curd set to be very good. Anyway, so the ingredients are 10 litres or 10.5 quarts of whole cow's milk, 2 litres or 2.1 quarts of reduced fat cow's milk, 3/8 of a teaspoon of mesophilic culture. I used MA 4001 by Choose It. 3/8 of a teaspoon or 1.8 millilitres of calcium chloride diluted in quarter of a cup of non-chlorinated water. 3/8 of a teaspoon or 1.8 millilitres of liquid rennet. I'm using single strength in quarter of a cup of non-chlorinated water. And 2.5 tablespoons of non-iodized salt. So clip your thermometer onto the side of the pot. I'm using a pot on a pot method. There's water in the bottom pot that creates steam and heats the milk indirectly. So the target temperature, heat the milk up to 31 degrees Celsius or 88 Fahrenheit. So I've reached that, and I will take all of my utensils out of the pot now. And I'm going to add in the calcium chloride solution first up because, as I mentioned, the milk is pasteurised and homogenised. I want to make sure that the extra calcium is mixed through so that the rennet will have it available to set a better curd set than what would normally happen. So adding in the mesophilic starter culture now. So to sprinkle that over the surface of the milk. And here comes the last of it. So that's 3/8 of a teaspoon. So I'm going to cover the pot now to keep any dust out and let that rehydrate for 5 minutes. So 5 minutes later, the starter culture has rehydrated, and I'm going to stir that through the milk. So I've stirred this for about a minute, just stirring it top to bottom, trying to get it all the way through there. So it starts eating all that lactic acid. So the target temperature, it's crept up a little bit, but that's okay. So take all your utensils out of the pot, and we're going to put the lid back on and let the starter culture ripen the milk or acidify the milk for 45 minutes, and that's staying at 31 Celsius, 88 Fahrenheit. Now I've just taken the pot off of the double boiler because I knew it would heat up a little bit too much, so that'll stop it from rising in temperature. So now the milk has acidified slightly, it's ready to add in the rennet part. Before we do that, we're just going to check the temperature again. So it's just under 31, so that's okay. So 31 was the target temperature. So I'm only 0.3 of a degree off. So now we're going to grab the rennet solution and we're going to pour that in whilst we're stirring the milk. So we're going to stir now for no more than 1 minute. Otherwise it'll start to set on you. So take all the utensils out, still the milk there, and put the lid back on. I'm going to allow that to set for 50 minutes at 31 degrees Celsius, 88 Fahrenheit. Looks like it's set there just by pressing on top. Now we're going to check for a clean break. I'm just going to put the knife in and then just bring it up. Yep, that looks fairly clean. It's not sloppy. Looks pretty good. So I'm going to cut the curds now with my trusty curd cutter. So I'm going to cut the curds into 0.9 of a centimetre or 3/8 of an inch cubes size. Very roughly. Okay, so that was the horizontals. Now I'm doing the verticals with the curd cutter. You can do this with the curd knife if you wish, if you don't have something as handy as this little device. So we're going to let that heal now for 10 minutes at the target temperature of 31 Celsius, 88 Fahrenheit. Now, the reason I'm using 10 minutes this time is because I said I'm using pasteurised homogenised milk. You can use a little bit less time if you're using just raw milk or unhomogenised. So we're going to lift the curds gently and cut any large pieces with the spoon. Using this type of milk, you've got to be extra careful because it'll fracture the curds otherwise. So just gently move the curds around until they're a little bit more stable and they have to let a little bit more whey out. Just checking the temperature, that's okay. Just heating that up slightly because it had dropped a little bit. So we're going to stir the curds for 10 minutes. Just going to make sure I don't exceed the 31 Celsius again. So 10 minutes later, I turned the heat off during the cut. And you can see that the curd's size is fairly small. Now, Lancashire is pretty a very either crumbly cheese or a very moist cheese, depending on how long you age it. So it's checking the temperature, and that's just a little bit over, so that's fine. So that's as much stirring as we need to do for this cheese. Not very much at all. We're going to allow that to settle down to the bottom for 10 minutes. So there's a lot of whey left in the curds at this time. So I'm going to drain the curds through a cheesecloth lined colander. I'm trying to get as low as I possibly can to the colander. I don't want the curds fracturing. They're fairly stable now because I did stir for that 10 minutes. So just gently putting that in, hopefully not slopping it everywhere. There we go, nearly, filled the colander right up because there's so much whey locked in the curds at the moment. Okay, we're going to let that drain for 30 minutes. So it has drained a fair bit there, probably gone down about an inch or two. I'm going to transfer the curds back to the pot. We're going to do a very rudimentary sort of cheddaring style here. So just gather up the bag, put it into the pot, and then give it a bit of a flick and they all come out. It's like pulling the tablecloth out from under all the cutlery, if you've seen that trick. Okay, so we're just going to press that down to help the curds knit together in one big slab. And we're going to let the curds stand for 15 minutes. To keep it warm, just make sure that you put the lid back on it. Now I put this back onto my little double boiler thing to keep it warm. And as you can see there, it's kind of solidified, so I'm trying to get to the edge. I'm trying to turn the slab over. Didn't have much luck. It kind of fell in half, but that's okay. I turned it mostly over. Press it back down again and let it stand for another 15 minutes. So I just tipped off some excess whey there. So I pushed it down, got a slab again, which is cool. So that's going to sit there for another 15 minutes. There we go. So 15 minutes later, I'm going to cut the slab in half with my curd knife. It's fairly well formed at this stage, which is good. Just make sure I got it right there in half. And we're going to tip the top one, even though it's a little bit crumbly, and pile that on top of the other one. So you're going to got a half without any curds in it. So we're going to let that rest for another 15 minutes. So 15 minutes later, this is what it looks like. A lot of the whey has come out now, which is good. The depth of that is about up to your fingernail. So I'm going to move that over to the draining area. And I'm just going to try and take the... Oh, it's a bit big. So I cut it in quarters, or half again. This makes it a bit easier to handle. So grab half the slab out, pop it on your chopping board. I'm going to cut it into 2.5 by 1.25 centimetre pieces, which is 1 inch by half an inch. And once you've cut them, just pop them into another bowl, which has been sanitised as well. As you can see, this takes a little bit of time, but that's okay. So just cutting them into those cube size, placing them into the bowl. That's one half done. We'll do the next half. Yeah, this does take a little bit of time, as you can tell. Okay, there we go. There's the last of it. So we're going to add the salt to the cheese of the curds. Now, you notice there's no salt coming out there. I did this shot. I actually did it and forgot to press the record button. But anyway, add your salt and then mill it through, and then fill your mould that has been lined with the cheesecloth with the curds, and then place the follower on top. Now you may think at this stage you would press the cheese, but we actually don't. So just fold the cheesecloth over the top, pop the follower on top, and that's it. Leave it to drain overnight. Now, it is a fairly moist curds at the moment, so they should all knit together fairly well. Now, that's if I had been using raw or unhomogenized milk. However, because I used the pasteurized and homogenized milk, it probably didn't knit together as well as I wanted it to. Anyway, so we're going to press it at about 10 kilograms, 22 pounds for 1 hour. So it forms a very rudimentary rind. So an hour later, we're back. Remove the cheese from the press. And not a lot of moisture actually came out because of that overnight resting period. So very crumbly still, not very solid. So gently turn it over and then redress it and then press at 22 kilograms or 50 pounds for 2 hours to help it form the rind a bit better. So with my 50-pound spring, that's tightened all the way down. So 2 hours later, we're going to remove it from the press again. And it's getting a bit smaller, so a little bit more compact. So we're going to gently turn that and redress and press at 22 kilograms or 50 pounds for 6 hours this time. So that's all the way down on my 50-pound spring. So the rind should have been fully closed now, but mine wasn't. So I actually had to press it for another 18 hours to make it close. Now, it was because the curds were way too cold. The overnight temperature in my kitchen was about 20 degrees Celsius. I thought that would be okay. This happens to you, just press it longer. Not much more moisture is going to come out. It's just going to close the rind up. So I found it took about 18 hours for this to fully close up, or close up as well as it could. So I pressed it at the full pressure again, 22 kilos or 50 pounds for 18 hours. There we go. So 18 hours later, I'm going to remove the cheese from the press. Like I said, you may not have to do this extra pressing step. Okay, that's much, much better. It is a fully closed rind now. And we're going to put that onto a bamboo mat and allow that to air dry. Smells lovely. Just to air dry for a day. It was fairly dry. As you can see, we're going to ripen that at 13 Celsius or 55 Fahrenheit for 4 to 8 weeks at 85% humidity for a natural rind. Now, I vacuum packed my cheese. And over to Gav.
So there you have it. That's how you make Lancashire. Now I'm going to age this one for 8 weeks. It's got a fairly good rind on it now. You're supposed to air dry it till it's touch dry. It's touch dry now. So I'm going to vacuum pack this and pop it into the cheese cave at 13 degrees Celsius and let that mature through the 8 weeks, and then we'll come back for a taste test. Hopefully that wasn't too difficult. I remember that I was using pasteurised homogenised milk for this cheese, and the curd didn't set as well as I'd liked it to. So hopefully if you use unhomogenised milk or raw milk, then you won't have any of the issues that I had with the extra pressing time. Hopefully it didn't lose too much moisture, but I do think this will be a fairly crumbly cheese. So that'll be nice. Anyway, thanks for watching, Curd Nerds. Don't forget to check out other cheese making videos like this one, which is cheddar. It's a traditional cheddar recipe and it's pretty good. If you want to get kits to make this cheese, then pop over to littlegreenworkshops.com.au. Well, thanks for watching, Curd Nerds, and I'll see you next time.